Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. Sattology means science or truth, the study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means science or study of fake, lie, or imagination. Sattology builds your identity while mythology destroys your identity. So today we have a very, very special topic, and I would like to welcome a very good friend, and he's also an acharya, teacher, researcher, and also he carries a deep insight into these topics. So let us welcome Sri Nilesh Nilkant Oak.
Namaskar, Aditya ji.
Namaskar. Amazing things are happening nowadays. One is that India's Pappu is being coached by a person who hates Hindus, and he is out in the public. Is in the social media world is already out. Second is many Hindus are questioning disrespect to their devatas and devis, which is a very good thing because devatas and devis, they represent a higher purpose and they're like the gurus of everybody. And the third thing is happening is Queen's demise has shown a lot of chinks in the Europeanism. Like,
Mhm.
for example, the social media platforms banning free speech for people having independent views. Aborigines are happy, natives are happy, and all the colonized countries are happy because her reign saw the maximum curtailment of human rights across the world. And she kept silence. And when
Yeah.
Winston Churchill was killing millions in India, she kept silent. She didn't speak a single word. And also, there is a contrast there where the converted natives, including Indian converted natives, are outpouring their grief as if from their own family has died. They don't remember that their ancestors were killed. So it's a very mixed thing gone in just 1 week. So what is your view on this?
Okay. Well, my views, I mean, not specific to, well, let's talk specific with the Queen. Now, if you use the wisdom of Ramayana, then it says Ram, after killing Ravana. So it is the learning that we have to take from Rama's killing Ravana, or all the analysis or all the evaluation that people are doing in the context of England's queen passing away, is Marana, after death, there is no vair, there is no enmity, at least with that particular individual in the sense of that Atma going into it. So we can say Om Shanti. Okay. Now, some people will have a problem with that. And today, you mentioned, how very anti the freedom of thought is going away, and I mean, in the social media, very sad thing to hear. And we'll talk about freedom of thought, but broadly, freedom of thought is one of the three foundations of Hindu worldview. But I want to talk broadly the worldview also, and in that context, if you look at her reign, the whole colonial thing, imperialist thing, and of course people before her, and unfortunately even after 1947, uh, I mean, Pandit Nehru, he might have his own virtues. I mean, we can always find good in any person, even in Winston Churchill, you know who was a demonism, or whatever you want to call it, was personified as far as India is concerned. We can also look at it, objectively, and say his leadership, at least from a British point of view, we can objectively look at this. And today we will talk about that also, that insights that is brought from a Hindu worldview. But quickly, last point, her rule, and now UK is getting weaker. Still, they have their traps everywhere around the world. All the land that they have stolen. They have acquired the Kohinoor, the diamond. In her crown is a good example of open stealing. Again, when we say that, one says that, you will find many Indians defending it, how it was given by Rana Ranjit Singh as a gift and all kinds of things. Well, if you are holding a gun to somebody's head, and then asking, hey, give me that as a gift. That's not a gift. Okay. So this is that. But if you look at even the simple basic samanya dharma, samanya dharma, not religion. Okay. And we'll talk about that today. Samanya dharma, which is what we talk about, the varna and ashrama. And if you take either of those definition, but let's just take varna definition, like it's a common minimum program that is for humanity. But look, her rule, we can say, and therefore a colonial and a imperial rule, not just from Britain, but anyone who did it, was amoral, amoral, which is to say what? अहिंसा सत्यम अस्तेय अकाम क्रोध लोभता अकाम अक्रोध अलोभ भूत प्रिय हिते हाच. This is the minimum common program. And if you go one by one, ahimsa, satya, asteya, akama, akrodha, alobha, everything that the her rule, colonial rule did, imperial rule, was exactly opposite of these universal, absolute moral virtues. Back to you.
One more sad thing has happened that Professor B.B. Lal passed away, and we have spoken about him. And it's a sad news. I also met him and gave him my first book as a gift. So we are Om Shanti for him as well. So
Absolutely. Om Shanti. And in this case, see, again, that is the beauty, right? That is called samatvam. We said Om, I mean, at least I said it. I don't know what your views are. And
same
everyone,
is Om
we are allowed to hold different views. That's the freedom of thought, right? But Om Shanti to the Queen of England, okay, in spite of all the things. But now that she's gone, and Om Shanti to our dear Professor B.B. Lal. But the background with the emotions that we have attached to are very different, almost opposite. Now that
Absolutely.
is not to say, just like there is very little good to find in the Queen. Okay, there is a lot good to find in what Professor B.B. Lal did. Just an amazing thing. I mean, all the way leading to the Ram Mandir. But we have also critiqued him. I mean, at least I have criticized him when he has done the things which do not stand the scrutiny of a science or logic or basic background knowledge, right? But it's our choice. Do I just look at that small point where he has made a mistake, or do I look at all the great work he has done, right? We can do, but still our message can be Om Shanti to both, but with a different perspective. So only a fool will look at, say, me saying Om Shanti to Queen of England and Om Shanti to Professor B.B. Lal as on the same level. They are
No,
not.
they're not. They're
Okay.
not. It's just like your father may be strict with you, but you still love him.
Ha,
And you may critic him also. You very much
correct.
critic. And
Correct.
and equanimity is the art, which is samatvam yoga uchite. It's a yoga. We have to samatva. We have to
Yeah.
maintain samatva at all cases. That's a sign of an intelligent person
Yes.
and able to differentiate on the niceties or fineness of every situation. Everything is
Yeah.
not black and white. And I
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Yes,
Let me add one more point, Adityaji, just relevant to that. So one is, of course, like your emotion, right? You can call it Shraddha in a way, like, so the people of England, for example, who grew up in that atmosphere and revering the Queen, they may be feeling very sad, and we can be, what you can say, empathetic to their feelings. That's perfectly understandable. Then we talked about the Samyak Buddhi. Like we can say Om Shanti in our prayers to for both of them, the both Atmas, because at the ultimate level, the Atmas are the same. It's a same thing. Same thing in the sense, like, everyone's journey is towards that ultimate destination. Now, if they choose not to accept, then it will be like Adhamagati. That is also guaranteed. We know that. But the third point I wanted to mention beyond that is a Viveka Buddhi also. For example, I'll take one instance without mentioning other names or something. But for example, uh, like after Queen of England passed away, the government of India sent condolences.
that's right.
Prime Minister Modi ji might have said something. Now, many of our pro-Indic, you can say, okay, or nationalist folks have a problem with it. Now, I understand the frustration and anger at all the atrocities that have been, put by UK, United Kingdom, Britain on India. That's understandable. Or under the reign of a queen. but to object in a wrongful fashion or in a very immature, okay, in a naivety, the government of India or Prime Minister Modi ji sending condolences is not to have a Viveka Buddhi.
That's
See
right.
that there is that Raja Dharma. Okay,
That's right.
don't understand. This could be a formality for all it matters.
That's right.
Okay, just like me saying Om Shanti, like I don't have any personal relationship with Queen, nor I have any respect for her. Okay, I'm saying what about the Kohinoor? If somebody asks me, but right, but as a not even as a for me, not a diplomacy, from a certain adhyatmic platform, but for a ruler or for an administrator, there is that Raja Dharma, there is that diplomacy. And if we cannot understand this basic, we cannot distinguish this, then shame on us. Okay, so that's the third point.
And also that's the definition Sthit Dhir Muni.
Hmm.
And then you have to Sthita Pragya, Dhir Pragya. So that's a sign of a mature individual. And Sanatan Dharma creates a best kind of human being, which is kind, like Yudhishthira Maharaj, Ajata Shatru. His Pandav
Huh?
brothers were very angry with him most of the times.
Right.
But he said, I can leave everybody, but not Dharma.
Ha.
And that's why he was chosen as a king, because, and that too by Krishna himself. And what he did the first time was Arti of Krishna.
Yeah.
Rasya Yagya was all to honor him. So,
Correct.
we have to maintain balance. I totally agree with you, because we cannot go fanatic in any way. Otherwise, I say that only the followers of Vedic culture have a balanced view, world viewpoint.
Or
And
ought to have a balanced view. Ought to
and
have a balanced view. Until then, you don't qualify yourself to call yourself a Hindu, or a
exactly.
Sanatani or a Vedic.
And also the Vedic culture gives room for disagreements also.
Absolutely. And a huge variation. We'll talk
Huge
about that
variation.
today, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, huge. And so I totally understand that, even though Queen, whatever she has done, and I don't know anything about her, I cannot say anything about her other
Yeah.
than having the frustration. I'm on that side, but I will not say anything bad as well.
Yeah.
Because I don't know her.
Yeah.
For people who
I
know her.
will, yeah, I will still say send back the Kohinoor and then we can talk over a tea, afternoon tea.
And, and very ironical that Kartavya Path was Subhash Chandra Bose done on the same day.
Yeah, that's
Very, it's a divine. It was
Vichitroya Sansaraha, Vyasadeva has said, this the ways of the cosmos are very curious and interesting and funny and humorous.
Subhash Chandra Bose came up, and another one went down. Anyway, let's get started, and then we'll continue our discussion after the
Okay,
presentation.
perfect. Now let's have something interesting at the end too.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, let me see if I shared it. Okay. Let's see. Okay, there we go. All right. So we are going to talk about, so against the uh like if you want to understand, I mean, I was going to talk about this view, I mean, this particular subject that has nothing to do with passing away of Queen of England. But if you want to contrast, what are the fundamentals that drove this very sinful, because the Western viewpoint will understand the word sin, the sinful imperialism. In fact, there was Aditya one tweet, I forgot from who. I mean, another very idiotic individual. I I don't remember. The person was saying, like, oh, somebody from, sorry, why I can't recall that now. Oh, from a Fox channel. And I forgot his name, but he had taken a certain position about the COVID vaccine. Okay, now that may be driven by a very narrow view of a religious view. But I would say again, I'll tell you, just like we said, Om Shanti to both. I agreed with directionally. I always agreed with him, irrespective of his motivation. This was a one Fox News anchor, by the way. His motivation may be different, but I was agreeing with him on the COVID, the different data he was bringing, and he may be motivated by that, and that's okay. I don't know his number. Sorry, his name. I think maybe Mr. Some Tucker. You may know that name. But he said something, and what a atrociously nonsensical thing that is, very sad.
The
I mean,
Tucker Carlson has done many such things. Just yesterday, he said the greatest building. Indians
yeah,
have not made any building other than Victoria Terminus after that.
yeah, no, and he, no, well, and see, suppose that is true. I mean, first thing, that is not true, but suppose that is true. The way he put that is just shows utter ignorance, stupidity, and naivety of a TV anchor. And again, just like, I talked about Professor Bibi Lal, of course, in a very different league than either the Queen or this Carlson Tucker, right? And I'm saying it because during the COVID times, if there was anyone that I found at least some sensible on the COVID vaccine views, like trying to balance the knowledge viewpoint, was him. Okay, so I used to watch him, and not that I stopped. It was just in that context. But yeah, exactly, that one, the one you're referring to, Victoria Terminus, and how they left the railway system, and all that. I mean, so surprising, so, I mean, so naive on his part. And he calls himself journalist, and I have nothing against him. I mean, other than that COVID time, I did not know that he existed, and I don't know now what he does, until this yesterday's tweet. But if any journalist, I mean, Wall Street journals, Washington Post journalists, they have written a lot on how what Britain did in imperial times, what America has done around the world in the capitalist times, literally destroying the infrastructures of many countries, destroying their native culture, building railroads, just like what British did. They also did it. If you go down where we get the bananas, the Ecuador and Colombia and Costa Rica and all those places, the railroads were built to steal everything that was there. That's what British were doing, and to move their armies to control everyone. Anyways, that's a different subject. I mean, if people want to be ignorant, or just want to get their whatever that rating they talk about high, by talking something provocative, hey, that's their choice. But let's talk about the opposite view at the Hindu worldview. Okay, now it's important to understand even the contrast. So, for example, let's begin. And Adityaji, you have done a great uh, job there. I mean, I like. I don't know. I mean, I actually, anytime I think of it, I smile. I even laugh to myself. Is like your Hindu Bible. So, for example, many times in the uh, Western Asian religious system, I mean, all the Abrahamic religions are Western Asian in origin, the Judaism or Christianity or Islam, for example. And again, when we're talking of a Hindu Dharma, we are not talking of a religion, but that's something people have to slowly understand. And honestly, Hindus have to understand it first. Then the question comes if others understand it or not. Many Hindus are so confused. Okay, educated Hindus are so confused. It's just amazing. So your contribution is good. When you first time told me, I think you may remember, I just went into a laughter, like a Hindu Bible. But now that you came up with that idea and actually you published it, my mind went back to like 30 plus years. And when I was doing my master's in Canada, there was one already a doctorate person doing postdoc. Actually, he was a professor at John Hopkins before, and then he was postdoctoral in my research group, with my professor, of a Chinese origin, and converted to Christianity. And conversion, that's a different subject, very unfortunate. But what he was asking me, so he used to have a copy of a Bible that once in a while he would read. And in my office, my graduate student office, I had my Bhagavad Gita. So when he used to say, and he used to ask me like, oh, so that's like a Indian Bible. And I wanted to make it clear that no, it's not a translation of the Bible that he's referring to. I said, well, no, it is a Bhagavad Gita. Blah. Oh, so it's like he pulled his book of Bible and he said, yeah, this is translated in Indian language. I said, no. Then he said, it's like, is it a Hindu Bible? And I said, well, there is no actually a Bible, I mean, there is no book per se. And that's what I want to show you. One of the key things. And it was all confusing. And I said, how do I explain it to that person? Finally, I gave up. I mean, he's a very well accomplished in a research field, in a medical, biomedical, biochemical research field, and a good friend of mine, of course. But I said, this subject I'll not explain. What I want to start you with is people will ask, all the Abrahamic religions are what? Religions of the book in some form. It's the Old Testaments, okay, the Torah or the New Testament, the Bible, okay, like for Christianity, Quran for Islam, okay. So these are the religions of the book. Again, religion is the term that is used loosely because we are doing this in English, okay. So if you do Dharma, then those people who are not aware of it, including many Hindus, unfortunately, were not able to make a distinction. And of course, those who are not familiar with Sanskrit, and we'll talk about Sanskrit today. Quickly, the point is, if you look at the Hindu worldview and they say, oh, where is your Bible? And I'm glad you solved that problem. And the one that you gave them in that blue color, is it not? The
That's right.
color is blue, cover, yeah, is Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
How beautiful. Yes. So if you have to choose, because Hindu Dharma is actually a civilization of a library, like a university. It is not like other religions, it's a one classroom or one book or one course. It's not like that. But if we have to choose one, what Adityaji has done is a very astute choice, Bhagavad Gita with a blue cover called Hindu Bible. Okay. Because
Other
you have
than
to,
you,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I'll forget my point. Other than you, there's only one person who appreciated it, is Dr. Subramanian Swami.
Dr. Suraswamy.
Because
Very,
once you live here and then they keep asking, and you know how many years I've been distributing Gita in US. So I always used to get the same question, the Hindu Bible. Where is your Bible? And
yeah,
also, I'll also, like, people have a problem with that we are not a religion by book. No, we are. Tata Shastram Pramanante Karya Vyavastito. The Shastra Vidhanotam Karma Kartum Viharasi. Krishna says that Shastra Anusar, we live Shastra Anusar. I'll let you continue, please.
yeah. No, and no. So I agree with that, and I'm going to also contrast that point because Shastra we have, but for Shastra we don't necessarily need a book. I
Correct.
mean, of course we have books. Actually, why a book? We have a library here,
Library
and
of
what I'm
books.
showing is not in. It doesn't even scratch the surface, frankly, right? But then we have the famous Bhartuhari's statement, and I am agree with it 110%. Okay, yastesham swaira kathasta eva bhavanti shastrani. Okay, the insights of realized people, the sages, the rishis, munis, tapasvis, okay, forms the shastra. Yastesham swaira kathasta eva bhavanti shastrani. Okay, so that is also there. So that means it does not like limited to the book. And on that point, since you brought up that, actually, I want to say what I'm showing is not sufficient. The knowledge that is been realized by ancient sages of Hindu Dharma cannot be contained in the book. That is also the limitations of it. That's why Upanishads are hard to understand sometimes. Actually, they're easy, but they can be also hard if you don't have the background knowledge. So there are so many of these books. And guys, if you are not familiar with it, this is just barely scratching the surface. In fact, in Taittiriya Brahmana, Adityaji, you may remember it. There is a very beautiful story. Of course, it's a metaphorical story. See what happens. The truth, it's called transparent to transcendence or Shakha Chandra Nyaya. To show somebody where the moon is or how the moon looks like or where it is in the sky, and the person is not used to astronomy, person doesn't know how to focus, or person doesn't know how to understand a certain object in the sky, a intelligent person may make use of a tree or a branch of a tree and say, well, hold on, can you look at this tree? Okay, something that person is familiar with. That's the drishtanta, that's the metaphor. Okay, look through that second branch. Between those two branches, do you see a circular white thing up there? Well, that's the moon. That's called Shakha Chandranyaya. Somebody made use of the branch or a tree, branch and a tree, to explain about the Shakha. Similarly, Upanishad, people are using language to explain something that is actually very hard to explain, like a Atma and a Brahmadnyan. But as I said, this is just scratching the surface. Actually, there is a library out there. But Adityaji, I was telling you the story of from Taittiriya Brahman. Again, it's a metaphor. Okay, it's like you can call that Bharadwaj Indra Nyaya. Okay, just like there is a Indraya Takshakaya Swaha, that Nyaya. This is a Bharadwaja Indra Nyaya. I'm giving that name, by the way, as I'm talking to you. So this Bharadwaj, sage Bharadwaj, you can say, and there are many Bharadwaj, so don't immediately confuse that with one you may know. This person may be that person, may not be that person. But one Bharadwaj, sage Bharadwaj, he, by following the brahmacharya, meaning what? A discipline, okay, chintan, manan, contemplation, meditation, studied Vedas, okay, and he studied uh, all the three Vedas. There are four Vedas, but just usually, typically, the three of a Rug, Yaju, Sama, in the sense of, again, the Vak and Yajna and then Bhakti, in that kind of sense. So he did that, and very successfully. He said 3 lifetimes. And then Indra comes to Bharadwaj and he's asked Bharadwaj, he says, uh, just answer my question. Now you have done this great, with this. If I give you a gift of another lifetime, like this, what would you do? And Bharadwaj says, oh, I will study Veda. Okay. And this is the time the story goes. So again, remember, it's a metaphorical story. Indra shows him three big mountains, three hills, or three ranges of mountain. You can interpret whichever way you want to take that word from Taittiriya Brahman. And then he lifts three stones and he says to Bharadwaj, look, what you have studied is like these three stones. And all that three ranges of the mountains, three hills, or whatever, that three peaks that Indra showed to Bharadwaj, he's saying that's Veda. Ananta, Ananta, Ananta Vai Vedaha. Veda is infinite. Okay. So that's the point. Now, in spite of that, if you want to look at the approach of a Hindu worldview, how beautiful. Well, at least let me tell you what it is. Now, somebody may find it beautiful, somebody may not even comprehend it, and that's perfectly fine. We'll look at that. If you go to the origins of Hindu Dharma, the foundation, origins not just in time, we may even talk about the time, but this is what I do work on, like the antiquity. But origins in the sense of a foundations. It is not the religions of the books. Now, that is not, I said not the religion of a book, I said not the religion of books. And I said that for a reason, because Hindu civilization has infinite number of books. Many are lost, many were burnt, okay, many were destroyed, many were stolen, that sits into non-Indian universities around the world. And unfortunately, even many who sit in India are just collecting dust. Okay, very unfortunate. But it's not the religion of the books. Now, many books, very important to understand the distinction. That's where you need a Shraddha, but you also need a Pramanya, you also need a Viveka Buddhi. We'll talk about these three and not in detail today. Adityaji, we will do a separate episode on the types and the gradation of the Buddhi. Okay. But it's very important that you be sharp in understanding. I mean, those are our audience. In Hindu worldview, in Hindu Dharma, many books based on the foundations of Dharma. When we say Dharma, we don't have to actually attach a Hindu. We have to attach it for the global audience and even the Indian audience who doesn't have a global mindset, but have an extremely deracinated colonial mindset. Okay. Unfortunate, but it's a fact. 5 generations. So no exceptions there, guys. All of us, Aditya, even you and me, we have to be very careful. We are also in the matrix, So sometimes we don't know when one of our understanding is driven by that colonialism and deracination. So many books based on the foundations of Dharma, yet Dharma is not based on any specific book or a selection of books. Now, if you go and ask somebody, if you go and Aditya ji and you say, hey, do you have a Hindu Bible? Aditya ji is going to give you that blue book, and that's perfect. There is no contradiction in that. Okay. Because as I said, many books are based on the foundation of Dharma to elucidate these foundations, elucidate the principles of Hinduism. And I don't know of any books that does a job better than Bhagavad Gita. Amazing. Okay. But even Krishna also, I will come to that. What Krishna is saying, Krishna also at this sense, after saying all that he said in Bhagavad Gita, he says, now, iti te jnanam akyatam goyat goyataram maya vimrushaita dasheshena yathechasi tatha kuru. Look, iti te jnanam akyatam, all the knowledge going into deeper, like depths. I explain it to you. Very secret knowledge, I explain it to you. Something that's not easy to even explain, but I have done it. And Krishna did it very successfully. But now that I want you to think through it, you meditate yourself, okay? The ball is in your court now. Vimrushayata dasheshena yathechasi tathakuru. Now you do as it pleases you. That is the freedom of thought. That is one of the foundation of Hindu Dharma. Okay, we'll come to that. But the book is not the religion of the books, although the libraries have been produced writing about the foundations of Dharma. Ananta Veda, okay, it's infinite. The Hindu Dharma's foundations are small, but they can be elaborated with infinite number of books. Yet the Dharma itself is not based on any specific book or a selection of book. That's why we have these different pantha. Their foundations are not different, but their achar paddhati might be different. Okay, what particular path they have taken, Okay, so that's one. Now, to the extent, it doesn't say don't start with the book. No, it says, yeah, start with the guru, matru devo bhava. Why even that guru? Matru devo bhava, mother. You are learning. You don't wait until you go to school. It begins with mother. Matru devo bhava, pitru devo bhava, acharya devo bhava. And, it just goes on. Many gurus, many teachers. But once at certain point, and all the grantha do that, okay, all our books do that, it says, you know what, at some point you have to even develop this attitude of renunciation, detachment, even for the books. Okay, they have to at some point go. Not prematurely, but at some point they have to also go. Why? Otherwise, what is the point of the book? It's like, you go to university to learn things. Okay. Now, Aditya, tell me, if somebody is there, I mean, my daughter started at the university, my son already came out of university, graduated. Now we are saying, oh, great. This is exciting. Somebody going to university is also exciting. And somebody coming out of university is also exciting. I mean, actually, honestly, these days, not for me, but that's a different subject. My point is, you are excited that somebody is going to university or you're going to university, but if you stay there too long, then it's no longer exciting. Actually, people are going to start asking, oh, well, I thought you were doing your degree, bachelor's in engineering. Oh, how long you are doing it? Oh, well, it's 17 years. Like we have some folks at JNU, Jawaharlal Nehru University, right? Permanent students. It's pathetic, right? That's the intention of it. And Brahma Bindu Upanishad explains it very beautifully. Grantham abhyasya medhavi jnana vijnana tattvata palalamiva dhanyarthi tejed grantham asheshata. Like the books that you have, once you decide, you should be focused. It's not like, if I have some time, I'm bored, therefore I will read. No, just sit straight, get rid of all the distractions, get the books, grantham abhyasya, study them, medhavi, with a sharp intellect, jnana, vijnana tattvata, for the knowledge, for the realized knowledge, practice that knowledge and understand the fundamentals, tattvata, tattva. Once that is done, palalamiva dhanyarthi, tejed grantham asheshata, just like you bring the harvest, okay, you thrash the grains, you throw the husk, okay, separate the grains, throw the husk, just like that, you at some point you have to develop the detachment to the books, because you have to internalize. That is the acharya, the one who actually practices, internalize the wisdom. Okay, let me go fast. Next one. Now I said, it is not a book of a religion, but I will also go ahead and say it's not, it is a dharma. I just use the word religion, and some people say, oh, religion. Well, remember, if I use the word religion in the connection of Hindu, I mean actually dharma. If I use the religion in the context of Abrahamic religions, I mean religion, because that's exactly what they want. Because all these Abrahamic religions, come together around a certain individual, and we'll get there, and a book, right? So I'm saying not only, just for a second, not is the religion of the books, although there is a library that is unparalleled in the history of humanity, history of the world, history of the earth, history of the solar system, to the best of our knowledge. Okay, but there is no authority of the book or books. Now we have Vedas, we have Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, Ramayana, and somebody says, oh, that's not authority. There are Dharma Sutras, the whole list that I showed. No, but no authority. Well, they are a guiding book. Okay. And not to be confused, the reverence for this grantha, is there a reverence? Should we have a reverence? That's just natural. Like we have a reverence, like say America, people say we look at George Washington, okay, and Benjamin Franklin, and it's perfect to have a reverence for them, not a blind reverence, but puja buddhi, So yeah, reverence for ancient narratives, yes, that is there, okay, for the grantha. But however, Hindu Dharma is not, it does not have to reach to the pathetic levels where the blind following of the content of ancient narratives is demanded or is insisted. That is not the case. That should not be the case. There are few folks, Adityaji, who in their naivety, on their ignorance, okay, in their tamasic nature, they will insist, but blind following of the content of ancient narratives. I'm just using the word ancient narratives for all the grantha, all the books, the libraries of Hindu Dharma. They are not to be used. Reverence is one thing. Yeah, absolutely. Do the namaskar, hold in very high regard, because that's the wisdom of the humanity. That's the wisdom of the ancients, okay? A realized wisdom. But blind following of the content of ancient narratives without the discrimination of whether it is true or false or relevant or irrelevant is a no-no. That is Hindu Dharma. Now, how does this come from? Adityaji, today we talked about saying Om Shanti, okay, to Queen of England, Om Shanti to Professor B.B. Lal, okay, but there is a difference, okay. Now, similarly, because when we are saying Om Shanti, it is to that Atma, okay, which is the similar, same, common, on both sides, and it's like wishing the best, okay, for the progress, but their level is not the same. Now, this follows from clarity and distinction between the Puja Buddhi, and I don't want to go into the details. That's a subject by itself. We'll do it another time. The Puja Buddhi, which is that reverence for anything, reverence for ancient narratives in this case, versus the Pramanya Buddhi, which is basically trying to understand based on the evidence, versus the Viveka Buddhi. So, therefore, I just gave a crude English translation. Reverence versus evidence driven versus prudence discrimination. For example, the last one I said, when a government of India is sending condolences, and some Indians or many Indians saying, "Oh, what is that? Come on, she was a bad thing for India," and why are we sending condolences? That is not to understand diplomacy, not to understand statecraft, which is what Mahabharata is teaching us, and even Ramayana is teaching us. Okay, you have to have a prudence, guys. You have to have a discriminating attitude. You cannot just because you have a hammer in the hand, and unfortunately, that's what happens. Everyone knows the saying: if hammer is the only tool you have, then every problem looks like a nail. You know that's a naivety. Okay, that's the intellect of a very basic kind. We have to come above that. Tregunya, Vishayaveda, Nistregunya, Bhavarjuna, and so on. So it is not just limited to the book. It's not dependent on the book, and it doesn't have any particular book has no authority. Although the amount of the number of books, Adityaji, we have in Hindu Dharma are unparalleled. Library, not just one library, multiple libraries. And those exist even now, those many thousands and thousands of manuscripts, in spite of the atrocities on the libraries that have been performed by very offensive Islam coming in and destroying and burning and so on. And then the British and the colonials and the Western European coming and stealing the documents. Okay. Now, let's go further. So just, I don't want to spend time on this. We'll take that as a separate episode. So buddhi, there is a types and there is also the gradation. The types that I just talked about, the puja buddhi, pramanya buddhi, and viveka buddhi. And the gradation is a sattva, raja, tama. So for buddhi also you will have sattva, raja, and tama. Sattvic buddhi, rajasic buddhi, and tamasic buddhi. Not to confuse these two, although they come together and creates all kinds of very brilliant, very humorous, and very stupid things, stupid entities, we can say. I'll just leave it at that. But let's continue with the foundations of Hindu Dharma. We talked about the books, we talked about the libraries, but no particular book as the authority. So, Adityaji, what I mean by that is, for example, say somebody like just take Hanuman Chalisa, a Hanuman Bhakta. Hanuman Chalisa is sufficient if the person does it with a Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Prajna to basically give him Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. If somebody does Bhagavad Gita, now preference is Bhagavad Gita, but that's my preference and that's your preference. Okay. Bhagavad Gita will take you there, even take you beyond. Okay. Traigunya Vishayaveda, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. Right? Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. If somebody takes a Dasabodh, that will do that. If somebody takes Tukarama's bhajans, that will also do that. Okay. If somebody takes 8 shloka of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? Cheto Darpana Marjanam, if it does that and just chants, meditates, contemplates, and tries to modify one's lifestyle, the Tana Mana Buddhi, according to those 8 verses of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, yeah, they will achieve the same thing. So we are saying there is no one particular path. That's what we said. No one particular authority of a particular book, but also no founder. Well, that's why we have these many. I gave an example. One can take Tukarama's advice, make Tukaram as a guru, and they are going to reach ultimate destination. They can make Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a guru. They can make Jnaneshwar Maharaj as a guru, right? Tulsidas as a guru. Okay. They can be a Ganesha Bhakta, and they will eventually reach. Okay. Sarva, what is that? Krishna also says, if somebody has a reverence, somebody has a conviction about a certain deity, certain aspect of it, I make that bhava sthira. Eventually, he's going to get to the same destination. Okay, that is the bhava of it. So, no particular founder, no prophets, no, not there. Not, but many sages. Just like the books, there is not one book, but we have a libraries. Ditto for when it comes to the realized folks, the sages, the seers. Okay. How many? If you just take a name Vishwamitra, there are thousands of Vishwamitra in that disciplic succession. Same thing for Vasishta. Same thing for other sage. There are these disciplic succession of the sages. And they are there always time. In any given time, they are there if you know where to look for them and follow their advice. It's non-sectarian. See, for example, the Pantha, unfortunately, there are these very, what can you say, Aditya? What's the right word? The narrow-mindedness also seeps in. Okay. And we don't have to always look at the West to blame them for it. It is our doing, and we have to be very careful about it. But the sampradaya, you said it last time, beautiful, like how it is not organization. Yeah, the idea of a sampradaya is to preserve the background knowledge that is been created by all the great sages and take it next to the growth of knowledge. And for that, we need a structure. So you can say it is a structure for it. Unfortunately, many people start developing attachment to it in a very, I would say, very inferior fashion. And therefore, like there is this fight. You see that on the YouTube also, like, once the followers of one say a revered individual blaspheming others and so on. Well, you can discuss this in the Pramanya Buddhi or a Viveka Buddhi, in that sense, it's okay to do it. But don't forget the Puja Buddhi. If the person is following the basic tenets, you have to understand, including the diplomacy, including the statecraft, you must understand the Puja Buddhi part. Never deviate from it. Okay. Then it's inclusive. I'll not go into the details because each of these bullet can be a whole episode that what Aditya ji and I do. But quickly, let me go through it. No separate, therefore, and I'm going to talk about the foundations. I have done an episode on that, the 3 foundations of Hindu Dharma. So I'll just go fast through it. And I don't know if I'm going to want to discuss it today. We might do it. But no separate, because once you define the foundations of Hindu Dharma, the freedom of thought, Achar Saishnuta, endurance in conduct, and conviction in the absolute moral standards. Those are those 3 foundations. Once you have those foundations, there is no need for some other additional tenets. Actually, there are many, just like many books, many Dharma Sutra literature, but they all evolve, okay, from these basic 3 foundations. Therefore, no separate tenets, no commandments besides these foundations. Then it is a non-nationalist in origin. Okay. For example, what I mean by that is, say here, yeah, actually you have the verse right here. Okay. So I wrote it. I didn't say it. From Atharva Veda, you have this Bhumi Sukta or a Prithvi Sukta. And how is the individual described? The sages who are singing it, they are not saying some very specific sectarian or nationalist viewpoint. By the way, I don't see necessarily anything wrong with the nationalist viewpoint. Again, nationalist viewpoint is not any different than a sampradaya viewpoint. Sometime for the reason of administration, effective administration, and all that, is certain boundaries are required. Just like there were Janapadas, although the civilization was the same, similarly, Sampradaya has its value. Okay, because people have, based on the type of Bhumi Sukta or Prithvi Sukta, what is the saying? Putro aham prithivya. We are the children of the earth, not like a certain thing. Now, of course, you will see the verses which would say Durlabam Bharatam Janma. But that's later. That came later. As the dharmic civilization starts shrinking, it starts shrinking. And there were areas which were not considered very favorable for practicing dharma. Then that Durlabam Bharatam Janma had come. But otherwise, it's a Vishwa Manush. I mean, you see that Vishwa Manush in the Rigveda. Okay, you see that here, Putro Aham Prithivya. Anyways, and then Sanatano Nitya Nutana, again a huge difference of Hindu Dharma versus the other religious tradition, the religious construct. Hindu Dharma is not only capable of refreshing itself, but it insists on it. Okay, so for example, take the pratha of a sati. Okay, and for whatever reasons, and that is a good subject for analysis and research and everything, but when it was thought it's something not right thing to do, just like a say pashu vada or something like this, yeah, that was stopped and nobody complained about it. I mean, yes, there would be some what you can say a manthan, that's the samudra manthan would always happen when there is a evolution and revolution, like when the gene code changes, yeah, we have to go through something different. That's a subject by itself. I can talk about how, depending on where you live, Desha, Kala, Patra, actually your gene changes, your DNA changes over a period of time. Okay, there is a very sufficient evidence of that. By the way, Aditya ji, I'll add something. That's one subject I also worked on. This is because it came like how depending on where you live over a very long period of time, how your gene changes and therefore certain things changes, how even your blood cells, okay, how they form, like red blood cells and white blood cells, they also change. And in chemical engineering, I had a pleasure of researching on it. I'm just adding, and then I'm laughing, smiling to myself because now my favorite trolls with half knowledge, when I said I research in quantum mechanics, like they were like perturbed, and they thought they can use that to make a fun of me. So I'm just giving them something more to think of, that I have also researched in the biomedical sciences. Okay, but that's a different subject. Anyways, so Sanatana Nitya Nutana, it is capable of refreshing itself, but it insists on it. That is the beauty of a Hindu Dharma. I don't know of any other Dharma, but the Dharma is not there. So I'm saying religious construct, let's say, because Dharma tradition will always want to refresh itself and will insist on it around the world, like a native tradition. But I don't know any religious construct which is enthusiastic about refreshing itself or enthusiastic about insisting on making the changes. Sometimes they may tolerate the changes because they have no alternative, but not enthusiastic. And the intrinsic nature of Hindu Dharma is that of revolution and reformation. Okay. Now, having said that, so yes, it is about revolution and it's about revolution. But one of the three foundation I mentioned is the freedom of thought, vichara swatantra. And some people will say, okay, it's easy to have a foundations, but do you have any evidence? Evidence of actually you practicing it? The dharma tradition or the seers of dharma practicing it, is their example. Bhagavad Gita is a great example. I mean, all other examples, Rigveda, you will say the same thing, and Yajurveda, you will say the same thing. All Brahmana Granthas, you will see the same thing. But my point is very clearly, if you want a simple example, take that copy of blue cover, guys, remember, of Hindu Bible, okay, by Aditya ji. Freedom of thought. This is what chapter 18, verse 63, I think. And just don't hold me to it. Oh, no, it is a 62 or 64. I think it's 63, but I can be wrong. Last chapter. Iti te jnanamakyatam goyad goyataram maya vimrushaita dasheshena yathechasi tatha kuru. See, this is that freedom of thought. Now, you can take that bottom four things and write four books about it, or four PhD theses about it, okay, or four concepts and then multiple books for each of those. That's how the libraries have been built. See the power of each of that bullet there. Freedom of thought is saying, and that's what a guru will also insist, a true guru will insist, a true original researcher will insist. Okay, accept only if you want to accept, shraddha. So yes, if I have done something fascinating, I will share with the world, but there is no, I'm not going to hold a gun to someone's head saying you must accept it. Accept only if you want to accept it, even without understanding. If you want to accept it, that is on the basis of a reverence, some conviction on your side, shraddha. Do not accept if you don't want to accept it. That is based on a conviction and a shraddha. Okay, I'm just using the word shraddha, nishtha together as a conviction. Okay, that's the as good as translation as we can get. We can say reverence, but I don't like the you don't like to use the word reverence, because that's like sometimes usually a blind kind of thing. No, it's not blind. Shraddha is, you know, the risk that you are taking. Nishtha also, you know the risk you are taking, just like my Arundhati Vasishtha research, that Shraddha and a Nishtha. I said, why would Vyasadeva write such a thing, which the whole world was shouting, this is impossible. All the astronomers were shouting, this is impossible in the very order of nature. All the Indian Mahabharata researchers, Dharmic Mahabharata researchers were shouting, this is impossible. But I said, why would Vyasadeva say that? That is some risk is there, you know, because I could be wrong. Maybe some part of Veda came into it, and I'm thinking it is not a part of it. So Shraddha, Nishtha, there is that some risk, and a person has decided to take that risk. Based on that, accept only if you want to accept it. Do not accept if you don't want to accept it. Then this is a very subtle part, guys, but that is the emphasis on the knowledge, emphasis on the trust in the knowledge. Okay, jnana tradition. This is a tradition of a knowledge tradition. It's very difficult to find knowledge traditions among sectarian constructs, among religious construct. There may be information, okay, but people like hate, people fear knowledge. Okay, definitely it is true in the religious traditions, but I will, Aditya also mention a warning to dharmic traditions. Okay, because so much of us are so much into deracinated, that many times what we believe are not the principles of dharma tradition. Pradnya, so shruti, shraddha, virya, smriti, samadhi, pradnya. Now you're writing on a uh, yoga sutra, that is this: shraddha, virya, smriti, samadhi, pradnya. Journey begins with shraddha, but the expectation is that it ends with a pradnya. And of course, you need both. Until then, you are not going to realize. Patanjali is saying that, it will not happen. And of course, in between, virya, smriti, samadhi. But the pradnya aspect is this: I will be happy. I will is in a sense of, if I'm the originator of this particular book, wisdom, a lecture, whatever it is, a discovery, not the discovery in the sense of Christian discovery, which simply means a plunder, but I mean discovery in the sense of a original finding, invention, okay, in that sense. I will be happy if you accept it only after you truly comprehend it. Then I'm happy. Okay. I will be sad if you accept without truly comprehending it. So, Aditya ji, I have many fans, and they would just totally say, Nilesh ji, it's such a fabulous. And sometimes I run into them and I'll say, okay, so yeah, you understood. He say, yeah, what a great thing. And I say, yeah, so did you understand that aspect of Bhishma Nirvana? I mean, with my work or something. And they say, no, I mean, all this, they understand. And they will say something which tells me that they did not understand. Now, of course, remember the first two parts, Shraddha. On the Shraddha, yeah. So Krishna says all those bhaktas are udara, Artha Jidnyasu, Artharthi, Jnani, Bharatarshava, all four kinds are udara. So this is not to criticize them in any way, but the pradnya aspect of it demands actually that truly I'll be happy if you accept it after truly understanding it. And I will also say, I will be happy if you reject it after truly understand it with your ability. But you say, you know what? I gave it 6 months, Nileshji, to understand your books, and I'm still not convinced. Okay. Hey, I'm so glad. I'm so happy that you gave 6 months to this. Thank you very much. All the best. Now, what if somebody says, I spent 6 months and I now understood it, and oh, absolutely, I accept it. Again, I'm very happy that you spent 6 months instead of just taking on the emotion, and that you understand it. I'm happy and all the best. Just like Om Shanti, the message is the same. Now take it to the next level for both individuals. And of course, I will be sad if you accept without truly comprehending it. This is not to deny somebody accepting it purely on a shraddha. Therefore, I said it at the top. Absolutely. Great. But the second, option three, is preferred. Okay, that's the point. Okay, quick illustration and we'll stop, and then Aditya, we can discuss. Now, I'll just for fun, I'll say it because the other people will not able to interact. Uh, can you, Aditya, just as a humorously, I'll ask the question, name another civilization, by another, I mean another than Hindu civilization, Bharatiya civilization, Indian civilization, that can say yes to any of these that I'm going to show you on the next page, existing for more than 10,000 years. Okay. And my favorite tripod here, okay, in Marathi it's called tivai. I don't know if you become familiar with that word, 3 legs,
Right.
3-legged table. Okay. Many people, I realize, and this was thanks to our another individual, that friend, mutual friend that Jeffrey Armstrong, Kavindra Rishi. He and me were discussing and different aspects, like what different things can be done to take this wonderful work that I have done over last 30 plus years to masses. Of course, in terms of publishing, it's only 3 books that I will show you at the end. But there are many books in the works, and I have to balance samyak. I have to balance my work life in such a way that I can write more, because with the lectures, what happens is it consumes a lot of time too. It has its value, but you have to balance it. So in this tripod balance, for example, we were thinking of how to create a foundation for people to understand my work, because many times, Kavindra Rishiji Adityaji was saying, he said, Nilesh, what you have done is fascinating. And he says, because he has of course, he's studying the Hindu Dharma for 50 years, and studying very hard. Okay. That's why he's lucky to have, not lucky, meaning with his efforts, have the background to understand this. He said, first time I came across this, and he listened to me, I think, in New Delhi. And then we were together to Jabalpur for the World Ramayana conference and all. He said he was fascinated. But he was fascinated because of his background. He has a background in Ayurveda. He has a background in astrology. Okay, the Vedic astrology, the Indian astrology, but even the Western astrology. He has worked in multidisciplinary fields. He has worked in the corporate. I have worked in corporate. He has worked. So that all knowledge helped him. And he said, that's why I was fascinated. But when many people find it confusing or don't know what to do, because it's like, those people who have never heard of an aeroplane, have never seen how it looks. They have not seen anything fly in the sky other than a kite or a bird. And then suddenly, multi-ton, a big jumbo jet comes and lands on their playground, and they don't know what to make of it. And he said, Nilesh, your research is like that. Many people just don't know where to start. Many people don't know what to make of it, because they are just, so much comes into this, they are just totally startled. And in our discussion, he gave this. And so I want to give my thanks to him for suggesting this. Nothing new. I mean, somebody will say, well, come on, I always knew it. Yeah. But why we need to read Bhagavad Gita every day? Because we need to refresh that realization. Okay. That's why the japa, that's why the tapa, and that's why the sadhana. That's why Hindu Dharma, in its freedom of thought, does not insist on a specific sadhana. It encourages sadhana. It does not insist on a sadhana. And therefore, it is very critical to remember, which Hindus forget, by the way, is that because it is not insisted, it is essential. Because Hindu Dharma mentions sadhana, but sort of gives you a loose rope, free rope, now you decide. Therefore, it is essential that you create your own sadhana. It's like in America, of course, there are designated areas, but very few places you will say, do not spit. Okay. Yeah, which means there is essential that we don't spit. Okay. Now, on a baseball field, people spit, or a hockey rink, that's a different story. Now, in India, everywhere you will find do not spit. I grew up like reading it everywhere. Or don't smoke here, which of course you'll see in America also. Don't smoke, but don't smoke now. I mean, America was smoking everywhere if you go back a few years ago. My point is, because Hinduism does not uh, like hold you by the tail or a neck and says, do this, you must do this, otherwise you are a bad person. Why? Because it is giving you a benefit of doubt that you are an intelligent, mature person. Therefore, sadhana is essential, but if you are not doing it, then you are a fool number one. Like a Jodi number one, you are a fool number one. Back to what my discussion with Kavindra Rishiji. So he said, you know what? I think people need to understand this before they can understand the jumbo jet or the three jumbo jets as of now. When did the Mahabharat war happen? The historic Ram and Bhishma Nirvana that I have landed on their front lawn. Okay. That what is that? Is there any other civilization that has created a stable and a capable language that does not drift or only minimally drifts? It is Sanskrit. No other civilization in the world can claim that. Okay, such a creation of this. If you, for example, ask someone, okay, do you speak ancient Greek? The answer is no. Okay, is it, I mean, do you chant ancient Greek? No. Ancient Aramaic? No. What about Latin? Now, Judaism, like the Israel did a good job in sort of, recovering Hebrew to an extent. Unfortunately, I don't know Hebrew. Then the next thing is you also need a stable timekeeping. Astronomy is time. What an ingenious invention, you can say, that the ancient Hindu sages created. They created a stable timekeeping system out of astronomy. Okay, there is no other timekeeping system that is stable. Like, say, take carbon dating, for example. Very ingenious method, very fascinating method. It is very useful, but because people don't understand how it works and its limitations, people create utter nonsense out of it. Okay, of course, people create utter nonsense out of astronomy too. And then another ingenious things the sages did, namely in specific names, because I mentioned Ramayana, Mahabharat, is Valmiki and Vyasadeva, is they use the first two, the stable and capable language, which has a no or minimal drift, and using a stable timekeeping system of astronomy, they wrote, composed iti hasa, iti ha asa. This is how it happened. They put it together for us using these two. And therefore, it has created a very stable platform on which, my work, by the grace of Vyasadeva, by the grace of Valmiki, okay, and then Krishna and Shiva, my work flourish, gave a platform to understand scientific biography of Krishna, scientific biography of Rama, but not limited to that. We understand Mayasura, we understand Saraswati, okay, the geographical origin, the Adhyatmic origin, Agastya, like Rupa Bhattiji is doing a great work on that. Sushruta, Pruthu, you mentioned Pruthu, so I put that Pruthu, Aditya based on our discussion there, that is there. And this is just a small picture out of it, that Mahabharata 7,500 years ago, Ramayana 14,000 years ago, Rigveda definitely more than 21,000 years ago. Where does this come from? This comes because of these foundations. No other civilization, no other culture in the world can claim all three of these or even any one of these. It's very important for people to understand. People who were initially not part of this civilization, but now we are becoming a global village. So people have reason to accept and embrace Hindu civilization as their civilizations for the new world, the global village. And for Indians who feel who are deracinated and who have that inferiority complex where they think studying any of this is basically being backward. Okay, they are backward. Anyone who thinks like that is a backward, deracinated, okay, and basically of a degraded intellect. And this is not to make them feel guilty. This is just to tell them the fact. And so this is just a one small, scratching the surface. Actually, what I have done, just scratching the surface. But there is more. I mean, you can actually use those three foundation and explore 75,000 years of antiquity of the Hindu civilization. Or you can go, I mean, as of now, what Rupa Bhattiji has done is put pointers, directional pointers going back all the way to 220,000. Now, forget about people, Aditya, this is my last point, by the way. Forget about people who are not connected, okay, or not born into this civilization. If they don't understand it, and they are like totally don't know what to say of this, and they just their mouth opens and they cannot close the mouth, it's understandable. But the deracination and the degradation of intellect among Indians, especially educated Indians, semi-educated, educated in the sense degree holders. That's all I mean. Not educated in the way of Vidyavan. No, that's not what I'm saying. Not the Vidya Snatak. I'm just saying degree holders, okay, given by the British system. They are incapable of comprehending it right now. They may be pro-Indic in their outlook. They may take a pro-Indic stance, but they are incapable of comprehending this. Now, I'm saying incapable not just from their pradnya. The pradnya is many times not there. It takes a tapasya of many years. But on the shraddha, even their shraddha does not reach this. And therefore, that we talked about the buddhi. The problem is with the buddhi, the types of buddhi, but also the gradation of a buddhi. And we'll talk about that as a separate episode. So I want to stop here. If you are fascinated by this conversation between me and Aditya ji, and if you want to explore further, these are the three books of mine. They are available on Amazon around the world. And if you are in India, those same books, different name, identical content, use some common sense to do the one-on-one correspondence. Mahabharata, Bhishma Nirvana. Oh, what is this new book? The third book, guys, okay, from Subbu Publications. Procure these books, read them. You need to read them multiple times for many years, okay? Connect that with your sadhana. Work on Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Pradnya, which means if you don't have a Shraddha, you will not even understand a word of it. Now, you take a risk. Something may be wrong, okay? May be wrong meaning according to you. But first you have to understand, accept with the Shraddha. That's the idea behind the Purva Paksha. Purva Paksha means you give a full benefit of doubt to the other person and says, let's accept from that person's point of view what he or she is trying to say, trying to claim. Explain, try to understand it, try to explain it better than even that person can. Now you are qualified to critique it. Okay, and this is what Aditya I offer to any other researcher. I said, I'm willing to present your work, okay, in an open platform, and I assert that I can present better than they have done. And then I will show you, I will show the audience or whoever why it is of an inferior kind. Assuming it's of an inferior kind, I'm not saying generally everyone's work is inferior kind, but I can also talk about the good parts of that work. I can also talk about the disastrous part of that work. People can ask me what are some of the challenges of my work, and I'll be happy to discuss it. The problem is, in comparison to what I have done on the dating of Mahabharata, Ramayana, or even Rigveda, all the other works, exceptions none, are unfortunately, Aditya are so far away in terms of the rigor, in terms of the completeness, in terms of the science, in terms of scientific equipment, in terms of objectivity, in terms of objective testing, in terms of logical reasoning. That's why I don't talk about the limitations of my work. I would love to do that. And I don't know if you saw that, Jeevan Rao and myself, we are experimenting on something. We haven't even done it yet, but the idea is to give it a shot and see how that works out. We call it Anu, as a holding title, Anuloma Viloma or something like that. But with that, I want to stop here. Aditya ji, back to you.
What a wonderful presentation. And also, like you were referring to the conversation with Kavi Rishi, Kavindra
Govindra
Rishi.
Rishi.
The Kavindra Rishi's points are very valid on Bhagavad Gita, the decolonizing the Bhagavad Gita. And you'll be shocked to know that the Hindu Bible, and I wrote that before I met him, in that book, I have completely used Sanskrit words
Hmm.
and not in a single English translation. Like I have not used the word transcendental
Hmm.
because it was designed, it was a medical term that going beyond the dental pain.
Hmm. Transcendental, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
translation.
Now someone is going to catch you on this one and saying, "Oh, well, that's not the original meaning of it."
I know, I know, I know.
Yeah.
But
Well,
how can
when
you
yeah, the sense of humor is not lacking, then that can happen too. So,
exactly? But how can you separate Dantes, the Latin word, and how can you separate trans? Because if you separate the etymology, then automatically become going beyond the dental pain means
yeah,
approaching heaven or uh, like that was a. And anyway, the you quoted the 63 actually 18.63 you quoted.
63, right? Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and you were right over there. So I this is what I really love, that when you back it up with a reference, you and I may not have seen I have the like we've not seen the supreme absolute truth of, I have definitely not seen, but we experience happiness by reading it.
Hmm.
I mean, something connects with us. In that way, we are experiencing also some taste. Otherwise, how long will it continue?
Yeah.
It's like, I have my majority of my life now, 60% of my life has been in this path. So now, or 70% maybe. So the point is that these topics, if you are not consistent, then you lose taste of it. You will
Hmm.
start looking for other things which can motivate you. We do need something like going for a hiking, some change of environment. That is different thing. But we're consistent with the topic. That means we are getting some rust out of it. So without rust, you cannot have you cannot reach a conclusion. Like
Correct.
it-
Yeah, and you said, like that we are happy, right? I mean, we are smiling, we are laughing at others, we are laughing at ourselves. Okay, it's important. Now, what is that? The ananda. Okay.
ananda.
Above that, actually in the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is beyond Ananda. Okay.
Absolutely.
But the problem is then that is to be experienced, but that cannot be described. Even when you go there, you experience it, you cannot describe. And as you said humbly, I would also say, I cannot claim, maybe I have experienced and I don't know, but I cannot claim that I have experienced that beyond Ananda. And even I don't know if Ananda of a Taittiriya Upanishad is what you and me experience. But the point is, that is what it is. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma no shochati na kankshati. Again, people don't need to know our biographies, but you have gone through extremely harsh times, harsh circumstances. I have gone through extremely harsh circumstances, and our stories are not unique. All our viewers, if they look at their life and write a biography, they can look at every turn, the challenge that they faced. But that's reality. Learning the Bhagavad Gita is there to make you learn through that ups and downs how to remain this. I'll just tell one quick story because I'm very fascinated with the aeroplanes. So I tend to use the aeroplanes metaphor everywhere, by the way. So this is again many years ago, and I was flying. I can't tell you where, but think of as a east coast to west coast, like say from Toronto to Vancouver or something like this, or it could be from like a Boston to LA or something like that. And that particular ride was extremely turbulent. Okay. And literally everyone was just going, even in America, those who are so experienced, like, oh, like, their stomach was getting it. It was that bad. And the person next to me, was soundly sleeping you know he was just open, look at the people, saying people are shouting. I literally like scared. It was such a bad turbulence. One of the very rare kind, I would say. And so he was sleeping. He would open up his eyes, kind of look at it, just a smirk on the face, like a smile, and he will sleep. Finally the noise was so much and the turbulence was so much that he woke up, right? So I was comfortable. I wasn't selling aircraft engines then by that time, but still I had, again, because of fascination, I had studied a lot about them. So I just asked him. I said, yeah. He says, yeah, well, it's just funny. He just made a comment. I said, well, so, but hey, you are calm. So like, you are not perturbed by this. And just he just came out of a sleep, right? Older gentleman, I would say. But he said, well, he knew where the flight was, kind of. He says, well, he says, it was like as if we were over Kansas or Iowa. He says, we are over extremely flat land. We are 33,000 feet up. Okay. Pilot is in controls. There is enough fuel in the aeroplane. The engines are running fine. Experienced pilot, good aeroplane, well tested aeroplane. What is there to worry? And he said that, and he went back to sleep. So that no shochati, no kankshati, that doesn't mean there is no room for it, but having that ability, because of that background, that knowledge, that jnana that he had, and therefore the books are required.
Yes.
Grantham abhyasya medhavi, jnana vijnana tatvaraha or tatparaha, with earnest sense of urgency, you need to learn this, which he did. Therefore, he could peacefully sleep in an extremely turbulent flight. And then Palalameva Dhanyarti Tejet Grantham Ashashata. Unnecessarily, he's not been perturbed by the turbulence. Okay, he could sleep. Sorry.
I
Back to you.
I will just quote, since we are talking about planes, and I also have the same interest like you, and I was flying in a small uh, plane, but and the smaller planes have more turbulence than the
Hmm?
bigger ones.
Yeah.
They literally fly like a kite,
True. Yeah.
and then the whole plane, in big plane you don't know the movement of the legs.
Ha. Ha.
In a
Also,
small
landing. When you
landing,
land, a big plane, you don't feel that, whatever you say, the shock or whatever, right? Small plane. Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but I'm saying, I don't know if you've been to Alberta. Like one of my customer, and I used to fly with him, a very small plane, that what you're talking, like, little bit, and then it goes like this. There is a place, I lived in Calgary. There is a place north of Calgary called Airdrie. It's, I like to think, not more than 30 miles away, which is what? The city, same city. He used to fly from that place to Calgary. Just imagine that, I mean, just the running runway would be the fastest, longer or something. And so I used to fly with him, even in the western US, with some of my, when I was uh, in the corporate world, some of my sales manager, I used to do it, and number of them were pilots, and we will go into a small flight to certain remote places. And what you are saying, I am like, I don't know anything, but I'm like the first officer, sitting next to the guy who's flying it. Very, very small planes. Yeah, scary also, extremely scary,
very scary, and and especially California has more planes than the entire Europe put together. So the
Yeah.
traffic is very big because
Yeah.
every small airport in California is crowded.
Hmm.
So, and to land that, you have to just land in series, like you're
Hmm.
literally at the tail of somebody's plane.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so you're landing, and then
Hmm.
we landed in the middle of a desert.
Hmm.
I think it is in a small strip, very small strip in a private farm.
Hmm.
And he landed for a coffee.
Hmm.
And that landing I can never forget because
Hmm.
the plane came down the runway and
Yeah.
jumped like three, four times.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
was looking, don't worry, we'll still have a good coffee.
Yeah. 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 This
And he,
so could be Mojave, like I used to go to Tehachapi, Lancaster, and
not
that
Mojave,
area.
just very close
No?
by. Just
Okay. Okay.
it's a Anza Borrego is
Okay.
the national park. Before
Yeah.
that, there was a small strip, and he knew, and it's a private strip, is owned by a family in
Hmm.
the back, and these small planes don't take a very long runway. They can land and quickly stop. And he landed, and then he said, "We'll have still have a warm coffee." I said,
Yeah.
"Good, very good."
Yeah. No,
And
these are fascinating individuals. Like one of my classmate and also good friend, and he's a businessman. He has a plane like Gulf, whatever the Gulf brand, like a company. I don't know much about it, and he has offered my classmates, including myself, a ride. But he bought. He's based in Atlanta. He bought a like a for well-to-do person, on his own effort. He bought a 40,000 acres of land in the southern Georgia.
wow,
And then, I mean, this is going back few years, and was asking me now, what should he plant? And I didn't know much about agriculture. I said, do whatever you do it organic. So he has a landing strip there. That's how he goes to visit that place, in the southern Georgia. Anyways,
yeah,
sorry, we digressed on many subjects,
yeah,
but
most
yeah.
of the people can't even understand that how much wealth America has accumulated after World War II. People were telling
Hmm.
me, one very close friend of mine was telling me that if the world were to compare just the wealth of one of the poorest American states,
Hmm.
they will be shocked what they have. accumulated over the years.
Yeah.
And there's a credit to them as well, and also a loss to the world, because when you say energy stays constant, samatvam is in the energy also.
True. True. Very
So
true.
if you become rich, then somebody else has to become poor, has to become poor.
Yeah.
That's why the varnashram system is built on social equality, and it's not socialism.
Correct.
It's social equality in terms of it is a duty of the Raja to ensure that everyone is taken care of, including plants, animals, and trees. Yeah. So thank you so much, Nirejji. As usual,
Thank you.
always a pleasure. And do make this video and all the Nilesh Oak playlists as famous as possible, like any other normal show. We're going to bring in more current topics in every show going forward. Namaste.
Namaskar.